A disclaimer from the Motion Picture Industry Pension and Health Plan. The information presented here is general, high-level, and educational in nature. Please see the plan's trust documents and the Summary Plan Description, SPD, for the complete set of rules that cover the plans. In case of any inadvertent errors, the rules defined in the trust documents and SPDs will govern. With that said, let's get on with the show.
Welcome to Red Carpet Retirement. This podcast is all about helping business owners and those in the entertainment and creative industries secure and protect their financial future. We provide educational stories and specific strategies so you can achieve the red carpet retirement you so richly deserve. Now here's your host, Adam Scott.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Red Carpet Retirement. And today, we're incredibly fortunate because we have a real red carpet guest on. David Asplund, the CEO of the Motion Picture Pension and Health Plan, who's actually responsible for making sure that the Motion Picture Pension and Health Plan delivers on the retirement of so many of my clients and listeners in the entertainment industry. So welcome to the show, David.
Thank you, Adam. It is a pleasure to be with you. It's great to see you again.
Same to you. And you just gave such a great presentation at the retirement conference a couple of weeks ago that the Motion Picture Plan put on. What an amazing event that is. And I strongly urge people to go to that event in the coming years.
Yeah, thanks for that, Adam. Yeah, we were really glad to be able to host that event again. We were off for a number of years because of COVID and the strikes. But the demand is there. We had about 960 people sign up for the event, and we had about over 1,000 actually show up. So,
that is,
normally your RSVPs, they come in, they're over what your attendance is, but in this case, it was just the opposite. So great turnout, great crowd, really nice to see people in real life.
Yeah, that's great. And that's so impressive. I've never heard of an event where the attendance exceeded the RSVPs.
Right. Yeah, we were cramming them in.
Yeah, especially for something like retirement that people think often as, financial planning and retirement is so boring, especially if they're in the entertainment industry. So it's just really rewarding to see people take that seriously because it becomes so incredibly serious when the time comes.
Absolutely. Right. And we find as well that we try to capture people in a kind of 5-year window before they might retire. And so we find that people do come several times, perhaps, or even more than that before they actually retire. And we're glad about that. That means they're more educated, they're making better decisions for themselves, and it always leads to a better outcome for them.
Yeah, and obviously I know a lot about this stuff. It's my business. It's what I help clients with, and I'm very familiar with both the entertainment industry and the pension plans and the health plan, the entertainment industry, and I'm very familiar with retirement planning in general. But even for myself, I find it a great education to go. So don't think to listeners that you know everything, that when it comes up again, please attend. It's a great event.
Absolutely.
Okay, so David, so you're gonna share with us some of your presentation, and I know that it's on listeners' minds on what kind of health the pension plan is in, and we're going to get to that because your presentation was great. Before we jump into it, I just want to mention one thing apropos of this, that I had a meeting with a member who's just entering retirement. They've got to make that decision around the plan about what should they take, because when you take the retirement, when you're a member of the plan, there are two things. There's a pension and there's the IAP. And the pension is a fixed monthly amount that you get. And there is a choice about it, but you can't take that as a lump sum. That is a fixed amount that you get every month, a fixed income stream. The IAP plan is a lump sum, then that money's kind of yours, and you can either take it as a lump sum or you can take it as a stream of income. We're almost done with the 30-minute, 45-minute call, and they said something that made me realize they don't understand. They don't understand they get both of these things. So I just want to bring that up because to make people realize you get these two amazing things. You get the pension and you get the IAP. It's not in either or. And one thing that the only thing you have to decide around the pension is how much do you want to leave to your spouse? Do you want to take a whole 100%, the spouse gets nothing? Or do you want the spouse to get 75% if you were to pass away? Or do you want the spouse to get 100% if you pass away? Uh, there are different formulas, but that's the nutshell. Anything to add to that, David?
No, but I'm so glad that you told that story, Adam, because as surprising as it seems to you and me, because we deal with this all the time, it does happen that people don't understand that they're getting both benefits. And everyone in our plan gets an annual statement. It has both amounts on there. It clearly distinguishes that there are two. But somehow a lot of people just look at it and think, well, I need to pick one of these. When it comes time to retire, I need to choose one of these. What am I going to do? The lump sum or the monthly payment? And I've literally seen people break into tears when they find out that they actually get both, or break into a happy dance or whatever it might be, because it is not uncommon to find someone who discovers this very late in the process. And at least it's a good news surprise. That's one thing I can say about it.
Absolutely, it is a good news surprise, and it was great delivering that news to this couple. Though I was also, though, a bit of a Debbie Downer about something else, and
Okay.
was, can you guess what it was? I'll tell you.
Mm, I don't know. I don't know. After that kind of good news, I don't know what comes after that. Okay.
Right.
What was it?
Taxes.
Oh
Taxes.
yeah, yeah.
They
Of
didn't
course.
realize that they would
Yeah.
have to pay on the monthly income, that they would have to pay taxes.
Yeah.
And of course, depending on your tax rates, that's more or less. But either way, it's not that whole amount. So when you're planning, you do have to take that into account. Now, of course, if you take the IAP as a lump sum, because you can also take that as a monthly income, but if you take the IAP as a lump sum, you can roll it over into an IRA, and then
Mhm.
at least you're not going to pay taxes on that rollover. But so we're just talking about the monthly income. They didn't realize they'd have to pay taxes. So that
Right.
was a reality check for them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Is
then
that
there's federal taxes, of course, and then state taxes, depending on what state you live in. Yeah.
right?
Got
Right.
to be aware of that.
Exactly. That's a whole other conversation. And for some people,
Correct.
that's time to move to Nevada
Uh-huh.
or
Yeah.
Washington State.
We hear a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. And then the one other thing I wanted to bring up, because this is the other kind of golden thing, and I'm not even going to talk about the golden ticket that they talk about, but is the fact that people don't realize they can retire from for the healthcare. They can get onto the retiree healthcare plan without retiring. In fact, full disclosure, I'm on the retiree healthcare plan. The retiree healthcare plan, I'm not retired from motion picture. I used to work in the motion picture industry, so I know all of this stuff intimately. I have not taken my pension, uh, but my wife, we used to be on her health plan at UCLA. She wanted to retire. As soon as I hit 62, I got onto the retiree health plan. Now it's way more critical for people in the motion picture industry because after 62, especially at this time, often work becomes less frequent. You get onto the retiree health plan, you don't have to worry about earning those hours anymore. You stay covered, but you don't have to retire.
Right. I'm glad you pointed that one out too. It's not as well known as some of the other features of the benefits of our plans. But yes, you can do what we call a health only retirement, meaning that you're retiring only into the health plan for coverage, and that you could delay the pension plan and IEP distributions until a later date. And if someone's able to do that financially, if that works for them, that's a very good route to go. And as you mentioned, Adam, the strain of having to get those hours or the work even being available, which is the issue right now.
Right. So, David, we've got a lot to talk about here,
Mm.
and but at the risk of a quick detour, the thing I always wonder about the retiree health plan versus the active health plan is there any downside to for the member to especially before Medicare, right? So between 62 and 65, they're
Yeah.
not going to have to pay the Medicare premiums if they go onto the what I'm calling the retiree health plan. Is
Correct.
there is there a downside? What does the active plan give them that the retiree plan doesn't?
There's very little downside. So in terms of coverage for you as an individual, you've probably experienced it. It's really exactly the same as the active plan. The benefit structure is just the same. The only downside is if you do have dependents, you have to be careful there, because in the active plan, your minor dependents are covered through age 26 if they're enrolled in college. And then in the retiree plan, it only goes to age 23. So there's a significant difference there.
That is good for me to know,
Yeah.
David. My
Yeah.
daughter, she's in college. She's 22. She's
Okay.
on the retiree health plan. I
Uh-huh.
didn't, hopefully she will be employed. And
Right. That's
by the time,
something all parents hope for. Yes. Uh-huh. Yeah.
yeah, that's great. Great to know.
Mhm.
Uh, okay, so moving on, let us have a look at these slides. And this is a podcast, so we're going to talk about these slides, but it will also be on, clips will be on social media. And David, do you want to tell people where they can find these slides?
Yeah, they could find them on our website. And let me just pull this up and make sure that we're good to go here. We good there, Adam, with the slides?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
slide, the slides will also be in our show notes for the podcast.
Yeah, and you can get the slides from our website. I wish we had it in a simpler place to find it, but I will go ahead and tell you how you get there. If you go to our website, the top banner has a button that's called Resources. It gives you a drop down to an area called Required Notices. And when you go there, there's a tab for Seminars, and you will find the presentation there.
Great.
Yeah. And it's a
So,
thorough presentation on the entire retirement process, start to finish, all three plans. I have a few slides this morning. As you mentioned, Adam, they're just really covering the financial health of the plans, because that's what we start with in the seminar, because of course that's a starting question. It's a baseline question for a lot of people. It's like, well, okay, these are great benefits, but are they going to be there for me when I need them? And the answer to that is yes. We like to start with that question and answer, just so folks can relax and try to absorb the rest of the information.
David, do you want to tell us about the first slide?
Yeah, on the first slide, it just demonstrates our assets under investment. And this is all four plans all together. And it shows that over the 5-year period from 2019 to 2024, plan assets grew from $10.8 billion to $12.7 billion.
Right. So
Then, yep,
that's a 20% growth rate, right? Over
yeah.
that period of time, David. And I found that both reassuring and kind of surprisingly impressive, actually, because I would assume the plan's been under a lot of stress during that last 5 years. We've had COVID, we've had the strikes, so the workforce probably was not as large as normal. This is just down to market performance? Is that the case? And how do you feel about this performance?
This slide's a little hard to analyze. There's inflows, there are outflows. We also, during this period of time, had 3 different IAP hardship withdrawals that we allowed from the IAP plan. So that feeds into this. There was a lot of money taken out during those. That was money that people needed. So we don't begrudge that, but it did affect our total assets. But yeah, I feel great about these numbers, considering all that we've been through. Some serious downturns in the amount of work available, during the strike period, post-strike, during the early part of COVID. Yeah, hours were not good. So I feel very good about this overall number.
Yeah, and so the slide is it's a little bucket of popcorn growing into a big bucket of popcorn. So
Yeah.
Yeah, good slide
Not
to
not to
illustrate
not
it.
to not to scale, by the way, not to scale.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Okay. So the next thing that we have is the investment assets and uh, what's in which plan, right? So you want to tell
Yeah.
us a little bit about that, David?
Yeah, I do. I think I like this slide because I think folks are often surprised by the fact that most of this money, 49.1% of it, is actually in the individual account plan. That's $6.2 billion. So that's normally reassuring to folks, hey, that's my money. That's in an account in my name. And that plan has been, but that plan, the inception of that plan was 1979. So those amounts have been steadily, growing since that time. The next biggest bucket is the pension plan at 5.6 billion. There's really no significance to the fact that the IAP is higher than the pension plan. The pension plan is funded with the money it needs to sustain the benefits that people are entitled to over their lifetime. So that's the requirement there. So I expect that over time, the IAP will continue to grow larger than the pension plan. That doesn't mean that the pension plan is in worse shape, let's say, than the IAP. They're just two different plans. And then we have the active health plan at about $1 billion, a little less than $1 billion. Retiree health plan has $42 million in it.
Right. And yeah, so we have a pie chart here of investment assets, and one sees half the pie, just almost half the pie is the IAP plan, and then the other half, almost half, is the pension plan, and then there's just a minor sliver for the active plan, and then a tiny sliver for the retiree health plan. And just to kind of reiterate about the difference between the IAP plan, that is, as David says, you're going to get a lump sum check for that. It is going to go up and down with the markets, but it's like what other people have a 401k plan if they work for companies or whatever, they have a 401k. This is like a 401k. It goes up and down. You'll eventually be able to roll it out into an IRA. Meanwhile, you have the pension plan where you're going to get guaranteed a monthly paycheck based on the amount of hours that you have. And the investment markets don't affect that. They don't affect your payment on that. So that's just, again, another thing that often I find it that members are not clear about. So I
Mhm.
have one question about this, and we probably need to keep moving. But yeah, so I have one question about this, David, which is it's really surprising to me that the retiree health plan is the assets in that are so tiny. I would have thought that the expenses for retiree health would be really expensive, like Medicare.
Yeah. So keep in mind, these are investment assets, first of all. So we have other assets in bank accounts to pay bills. And so there's much more money in the retiree health plan than $42 million. So our outflows for retiree health are about $15 million a month. So you can figure out, if later I have a slide that shows the number of months reserves, which is currently at 8 months. Multiply that by 15 million. That's about our total balance for the retiree health plan. And there's some interactive funding between the active and retiree plans. So they're right where they need to be.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, good to know. So the next thing is the hours worked, and
Yeah.
that's pretty impressive. You want to tell us about that, David?
Yeah. This is such an interesting slide to me. First of all, for those who are able to look at this slide, there is a darker line and a lighter line. The darker line are the actual hours worked for each of these years. And so you could see starting in 2016, we were at 94.5 million hours worked in 2016. We hit a peak in 2022 of 122.9 million hours. And then this year for 2024, we're projecting to be 89, 90 million hours on the year. So this is a, if you look at this line, it tells the story of a lot of workers in the industry. 2020 was a very hard year. COVID hit, production shut down. It did open back up later in the year, thankfully. And then we had these two incredible boom years of 2021 and 2022, often referred to as the peak TV years. And then 23, when we saw the dual strikes, and you can see here on this slide that it had a larger impact than COVID did. We went down to 73.3 million hours in 2023. And in 2022, we're at 79.7 million hours. I think probably the thing that has surprised most people is that we didn't see this, gigantic bounce back like we did after COVID. It's been a very muted bounce back in 2024. And that is where we're at. And let me comment on the line underneath it, Adam. That's that gray line is what we call the assumed hours, and that's a bargaining party assumption, actually. So, but you can see, and we had bargaining in 2024, and you could see there that the assumption dropped to 85 million hours. But I'm glad that they based their assumptions on that lower number, because that means that the actual hourly rate on everything is built such that those amount of hours will sustain these plans well into the future.
Yeah, it's a fascinating slide, seeing those assumptions and the actual hours worked. And the great news is, as you mentioned, that in 2024, that the hours worked actually are higher than the assumption. And and it's been a really tough year for the industry and for many people. And it's interesting that it's not as tough as you guys thought it might be. And
Yeah.
it's also interesting for me to hear what those assumptions were based on, and that you're saying that it's negotiation assumptions,
Right.
and also for people to look at this, and if you think, where's the industry going? Well, this kind of gives you an idea, at least, of what the powers that be, where they think it's going at the amount of hours worked.
Yeah.
Hopefully, their assumption will jump up a bit from 85. Their assumption was that there would be 85. What is that, million? 85 million hours
85
worked?
million hours. Yeah, that's the
Yeah,
assumption, and that they'll hold that assumption for this next 3-year period. And what we hope is that, it actually comes in over, which it is a little bit for this year. And it's from my seat, from your seat, it was impossible to predict what's really going to
they
happen. We
have.
hear,
And as you mentioned, they've always been very conservative. But
yes,
let's hope it's more than 85 million, because when we look at this graph, we can see that 85 million is lower than lower than 2016, and the only times that
yeah,
were lower were the strike and were COVID.
yeah,
Obviously the industry is reshaping and changing.
right.
But yeah.
It's
It,
definitely
it-
a reset. It's definitely a big reset. There's a bunch of different ways of looking at this, of course. And I liked what you pointed out, though, that it was back in 2016, 2017 that we were at this level of hours. So, um, the positive spin, of course, would be it's a reset, but we're not resetting to a 2010 level, for example. If you looked at if I showed you the slide going back to 1999, you would see that's been a gradual increase in the number of hours worked every year, year over year, since 1999.
that's
So at least we're not going back too far. That's not much comfort for people who have suffered during this time. And I've talked to a lot of people that, at the seminar, showed this slide and had people come up and say, "Where'd those hours come from?" Because they haven't been seeing the work. So it hits people, it hits the working population unevenly, and it's not everybody's experience, and we really feel for the folks that have had a really difficult year, and we hope for more work next year, for sure, for our participants.
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing, because anybody I talk to, it seems like they've had a very slow year. I mean, the good
Right.
news for um, I say a lot of my clients are close to retirement or they're retired. So it's my heart really goes out for those people in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, kids in college or whatever, prime working years,
Right.
and really tough for them.
Yep.
Okay. Uh, so let's go to the employer contributions.
Yeah. So these are, well, we have hourly and percent contributions here. I don't know how granular you want me to get on this, Adam, but the trend line here follows the trend line for the hours because let's just look at that tall lighter blue line as an example. Those are contributions to the active health plan. As you can see on it, there's a there's money sent to us on an for every hour worked in the industry. Most of that money goes into the active health plan. That's where the biggest contribution is needed for funding. Um, so you could see the trend line, the same trend line that you saw with ours. Um, the gray bar is the IAP. Now those are based on a percentage of base salary and not an hourly rate. But it still follows the same trend. People are working more, they're working less. It's the same trend. So it goes up and down like the hours. And but there are, this is where the bargaining comes in. So the hours are the hours, but then, we've had at each bargaining period, 2024 and 21 and 18, we had significant increases to those hourly rates to keep the plans in good shape.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, I mean, for me, again, this slide was quite an eye-opener. It's interesting that the contributions, the employer contributions to the active plan, uh, look to me like they've increased about 50% since 2016, the period of this graph, whatever it is, an
Mm.
8-year time period. Meanwhile, the contributions to some of the other sort of things have not increased quite as much, and particularly say the retiree health plan looks about the same. The
Yeah,
contributions are the same. It's kind of
yeah.
surprised me.
Yeah, it's all based on um, assumptions and actuarial, you know, predictions of what the next period of time is going to look like. And fortunately, that's been the amount that's needed to sustain this plan. Um, we did a couple of things that were significant back in 2018 to bring some cost savings to the plan. For our Medicare eligible retirees, we moved to a Medicare Advantage plan with Anthem. It's a PPO plan, and it mimics the active health plan. So most participants didn't really notice a difference at all. Of course, they were concerned when we made the switch, but over time they've found out that it's this exact same set of benefits. They have access to the same doctors. But what that allowed us to do was to get greater subsidies from the federal government. Anthem gets the subsidies because they run the program. But we're taking advantage of federally subsidized dollars that were available to the plan. And we needed to avail ourselves of those dollars and it's helped the plan a lot. We did the same thing with our pharmacy benefit in 2018. We moved to what's called an employer group waiver program. That means nothing to anybody, even me. It made us eligible to receive some very significant federal subsidies that help to pay our bills in the retiree health plan. So that helped a lot. We did that in 2018. It allowed us to, not require the same kind of rising level of contributions that you normally see with a health plan.
Great, David. Yeah, that's fascinating to hear about the retiree health plan and the Medicare Advantage plan and the decisions and the federal dollars around that, and that explains a lot.
Yeah.
So, one other question about this. So, it was also interesting to me that the IAP contributions are greater, and I think they've grown more maybe than the pension plan contributions. And to me, pension plans are really expensive, so it surprises me. I would think the pension plan would require much bigger contributions for you to be able to pay out those kind of guaranteed payments. And I don't know that there's any answer to this, but it's just an observation.
Yeah, again, it's actuarial math, and we are sufficiently funded in the pension plan. The IAP, again, it's based on base salary. So as folks are making more money, they're working more hours, that goes up. Um, so I guess, yeah, I don't know how else to explain it other than you probably have a little more in the pension plan. You're dealing probably with a longer term investment of that money, because you don't have it being drawn out in these big chunks like you do in the IAP. So there's that, that power of that type of compounding. Yeah, but we're in good shape in that plan, in the pension plan,
Right.
in
Oh,
all
that's
plans.
interesting. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's interesting, as you say, about the time period and the compounding that
Hmm.
it's got more time to grow.
It does. Yeah.
Yeah. So the next residuals. This was fascinating.
Residuals.
This was fascinating to me, is just to see how big
Yeah.
a contribution the residuals are to the plan. Because I think,
Yeah.
from my point of view, when I was working in the industry, and for I'm sure a lot of people who are members of IATSE, they wish they were getting residuals, right? We work
Yeah.
with people who are getting residuals, and one is very jealous of the people who get residuals, the
Right.
actors, the directors, and the writers. And
Yeah.
we gave ours up, and this is where it's coming. But
Yes. Yeah.
so, do you want to talk about this, David?
Yeah, I do. This is a very important source of income. As you can see, it's a significant amount of money. $600 million is about where we're at right now. And it's been on the rise. This is if you go back to looking here at this number, on the hourly contributions 2024, almost 1.2 million. So this is another 50%. This is a completely unique feature, Adam, as well for a benefit plan. If you look across different industries, you really don't find anything else like this. It's normally based just on hours and investment returns. And so we have this extra source of income. Obviously, it's a source of funding that's helpful. That means it's less required on the hourly side. But what's really important about it, and I actually didn't think about it quite in these terms until COVID hit, but you see here that the residuals are very steady. They're not based on hours worked. They're not based on how busy the industry was that year. And so, you go back to this slide here where you see these big dips in 2020, 2023, right? And during those years, and residuals just kept coming in. And they were truly our safety net in these years. They kept these plans in good health. So yeah, in addition, not only is it additional money, but the way it flows in is extremely beneficial.
Yeah, that's great. And we got to keep moving. But I'm also impressed by the contribution of new media there.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
and I assume that was like what a lot of the recent negotiations were about, is streaming or whatever.
Yeah, actually, the most recent negotiations are going to introduce another another stream of residuals. High budget SVOD is the category. It'll be within new media here. We hope to be able to actually track the amount separately as well. We're not anticipating to see actual dollars come in until toward the end of 2025. But once they do, we hope to be able to track them separately. So this new media bucket here it's actually a very large bucket. There's a lot of different things in it. This is not a result of this year's bargaining, but it should be added to or increased by what was accomplished this year in bargaining.
Right.
Yeah.
So
So a little bit
healthcare,
on the
yeah.
spending side here. I don't know if you're interested in this one, Adam, but we've been talking about money coming in and how we're funded. This is money going out. It's always interesting, I think, to look at healthcare spending, but you let me know how much time you want to spend on this.
I mean, I would love to get into it, but I think we'll keep moving. We'll
Yeah,
just take it. The healthcare spending has been going up.
it's been going up. And if you're a retiree, the thing to note here is that we actually spend more money on pharmaceuticals than we do on medical care.
Right.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
yeah. Got some
So,
statistics here on retirements. I don't know if you want me to cover this at all, Adam. I think probably the most interesting thing is just the number of retirees.
yeah, absolutely. And this is the number of retirees that are retiring each year.
Yeah,
And we can see that there are 50% more retired this year than in 2016. And
right.
it's 1,538. Not actually as many as I would as expect, but obviously because of the conditions. The other interesting thing to me here is the monthly pension payment, which per beneficiary, which is 1,532, lower, I think, than most people get.
Yeah,
Most people who've worked for 30, 40 years in the industry get a lot more than that. It's just
yeah.
people like myself who left early where we get
Yeah,
a smaller number.
this is the average of all payments. So you have surviving spouses in here, you have folks that worked a short career and they're collecting their pension now. Yeah, this folks is that worked a long. You probably see it in your clients that come in, Adam. There's typically they're getting um, recent retirees are getting much more than this.
Yeah, they're getting three to
Yeah,
4,000 or even more
right,
than 4,000 a month.
right.
And the other interesting thing about this is the average age of retirement, and just under 66 years old. And one of the other I'm going to be golden things, golden opportunities about the plan to me, David, is the opportunity to actually delay your retirement. And even if you're not working, even if you're sick and you don't work, it that there is potentially an opportunity that if you don't claim until you're what used to be age 70 when you had RMDs, I think now you can push it off to 73.
Right.
And the the best thing almost it seems to do is not to work and not to claim. It goes up by 1.2% a month, which ends up being over 14% a year. Your payment will increase if you don't claim it after the age of 65.
Mhm.
And oh, David, do you have anything to add to that?
No, you're right. If someone is able to do that, if they're able to, sustain themselves in some other way before needing to take that payment, yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah, I guess the one thing I'll add, just to put this in perspective, is that Social Security goes up by about 7 or 8% a year if you delay it. And all other things being equal, you need to do more financial planning around this to make sure it's the right decision.
Right.
But let's say Social Security goes up 7 to 8% a year. The received wisdom is if you're going to have a long life, you want to delay claiming Social Security to age 70, even if you're not working. You're better off delaying. It's a complicated thing. There are many factors that go into it. The same thing with motion picture. People sometimes know about delaying Social Security. In the motion picture industry, they often don't realize that just because you want to stop working doesn't mean you have to claim your pension, and you might be better off by delaying that claim.
Yeah. Yeah. And the one thing I would say to your audience, Adam, is like if any questions like that, they become very specific to an individual case. And we just ask folks to contact us, email us through our website or call us. We have counselors that can meet with folks that are considering retirement. We have workshops with different ways of getting the information, but we will perform an individual retirement calculation for anybody at anytime that's requested. We do have a calculator on our website as well, but I I actually think it's better to give us a call and work with one of our staff, and so you could feel really sure about that.
Absolutely. They're incredibly helpful, David. I
Mm.
find the staff. Okay, so we better start trying to wrap this up.
All right.
And we got the important thing, which is the funding status. But I also
Yeah.
want to get into inflation and colas and the health. Well, I'm curious about the amount of money spent on health versus pension, if we can get to it. But let's have a look at the funding status, which is good news, really.
Yeah, it's great news. We're at 72% funded as of January 1st, 2024. We're anticipating that's going to jump up 1% next year. But it's not linear. So we are projected to be above 80%. I think the number is 83% in 2029. So that's just right around the corner for us. This is still considered what the government considers green zone or safe zone status. That is just an indicator that put on the plan determining the health of the plan. Green is good. You could get there by either being at 80%, no questions asked, or if you're under 80%, then need to show some actuarial calculations that, given your current assumptions and current funding levels, that you'll be to 80% within 10 years. But as I just mentioned, we're going to be there within the next 4 years. Just
Right.
about 4 years now. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
great.
yeah, that's good. And you could see that if you happen to be looking at the slides here, in 2018, we were at 66.5%. So we've gone steadily up since then, and we're currently at 72. Next year, again, we should be at 73 or so.
Yeah, great. And yeah, the goal is to be over that 80%, which
Yes.
traditionally was considered fully funded, and the government
Right.
changed the rules and allowed funds to be plans to be under that. But good news that you're going to be over it in short order, hopefully.
Mhm.
Okay,
It's
so let's.
wonderful that I mean, it's incredible. Most people don't have these two sources, pension plan, IEP, and then you have your Social Security. But even with that, I encourage folks to develop, a fourth leg to that stool. With the insecurity, and I know this is a different topic, Adam, I know you've covered it, but Social Security insecurity, inflation, it's always good to have another pocket of money somewhere, if at all possible.
Right. And that's why people come and work with us. I'll give
Mm.
myself a quick plug there. Oh, people like us. Okay, well, we've got to wrap it up, David. I think it's just terrific that I think that we're all, any member of the industry is so appreciative for what you and your staff do. It's an amazing job, and thank you so much. So we've been so lucky to have you on, David. David Asplund is the CEO of the Motion Picture Pension and Health Plan. Thank you for being on the podcast. Thank you so much to you and your staff. What you do at the plan, it's an amazing job. We're so lucky to have this plan, the health plan, the pension plan in place, and the great support that you guys do.
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate that. Nice being with you.
Thank you. And of course, thank you so much to our listeners. Thanks for being here. If you have any kind of questions about your retirement or about the health plan, feel free to reach out to us. And of course, feel free to reach out first to the Motion Picture and Pension and Health Plan directly, and they can help you with all your questions. To get in contact with us, please call 310-220-4946, 310-220-4946, and we can help you with all of your retirement planning needs. And you can also reach out to us at our website, wellacrewealth.com. So in the meantime, thank you very much for listening, and we look forward to talking with you next time.
The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Wellacre Wealth Management, LLC. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content should not be considered as legal or tax advice, nor is it intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor and consult with your own legal and tax professionals before taking any action.